Hey Janelle, we're going to take a look at your week 6 final project here. Kind of switching back and forth between the draft you had in before and the new one, just because a lot of the changes you've made are very subtle. Some of them, like seeing some shading going on here now that wasn't there before, to some cast shadows getting a little darker, or maybe the scan is a little cleaner. Having a little more texture down here, just a lot of these little things that I think help to make the drawing feel a little bit more three-dimensional, which is nice to see. All the changes I'm seeing, I think overall are working out well. The only one that I think starts to detract a little bit is the dark line underneath all the elements, which I think is trying to get some of that darker cast shadow to separate from the furniture a little bit more. I think the dark is good, but I don't think you necessarily needed to use black, and I think you could have gone in and just kind of widen that out a little bit more so that it felt more like the kind of the part of the cast shadow, rather than what it feels like now is just kind of an outline down on the bottom. And I think that the black might just be making it stand out a little bit more than it needs to, and if it was, say, like a 60 gray that was in there just over top of the gray, it might not stand out quite as much. But there's some kind of areas, like here, where it kind of extends beyond the actual object itself. There's pretty strong contrast between the white, the gray, and then the black that I think it calls attention to itself when it doesn't necessarily need to be calling attention to itself. Although I think you needed something here because it's very easy for this kind of shadow side of the couch to kind of blend right into the back wall, which isn't something that should have happened. But I think all the other changes were for the better. The textural stuff, the shading that you've added are, I think, very helpful at this point. There's a little bit of gray on the top, which is good to see. In some things there's some contrast elements, like getting a little bit darker in like the back table and stuff like that, I think really help out. I'm very happy with this in terms of, I think, the lighting situation, which just feels very consistent. Things are being shaded very consistently all the way throughout the drawing, considering where the light source is coming from. So things that are on the right side of the light have the right side of their planes being very, very dark. Things that are on the left side, if they're facing the light, are much lighter, and it has a nice consistency through it throughout the entirety of the drawing. And then getting a little bit of that shading into things like the walls as well is just a nice little touch. It does feel very complete. There's a nice amount of variety in place texturally. It works out well. It would be nice to see a little bit more texture in place, trying to get maybe a fabric texture or a texture on the floor. But you've got the walls, you've got the wooden furniture here, which I think is good. Marker use also feels very good. It's clean. Edge quality feels good overall, cleaning up a lot of those places where we were seeing issues before. They're being refined to a greater degree. So I think a lot of the stuff that we said in the last crit still stands, obviously, because this is such a close approximation to that last one. But there are definitely a lot more improvements, and it feels more finished at this point. And with just a few kind of caveats here and there, I think it really kind of sums up the class and deals with a lot of the things that we dealt with quite nicely.